great introduction. I don't know about a great leader, U.S. Hispanic, but that's still debatable. We'll see later on. You are, and there's a great opportunity to work under your leadership on all the great things that you did, and congratulations on your dad. And I know my chairman's dad, as they back then had the inspiration and the leadership to start the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I know that we have you already have too much business? It seemed like it. Okay, that's the point, right? That's why I asked, because we don't have enough. We want to look at opportunities. We want to definitely grow businesses. And that's the purpose of this panel. We want to definitely talk about opportunities, talk about areas that we might not have thought about, especially here in the Southwest area. So certainly, we all want more business. I know back then, back when I had the opportunity, the honor to work at SBA, we had a lot of businesses and interest groups and stakeholders come in from across the country, and they would say, look, we appreciate everything you're doing in terms of coordinating, getting banks and banks doing loans, but if we don't have business, we can't have a loan. We can't expand our business and look at different areas. So definitely that's what we want to talk about. So this expert panel is going to give an overview of what are the opportunities in the South region, but also to look at nationally too. I would say don't lose that foresight as well of not only what is in the region, but what is nationally available for you. So first of all, I'd like to introduce first panel, and what the agenda that I would want to do is going to introduce each of the panelists. They're going to give a brief overview of their mission, what their company does, or their oversight. Then I have a couple questions for each of the panelists, and then we're going to open it up to see if there's any additional questions. And then we're going to finalize it with all of us joining the reception. How about that? So it's us between the reception, so we're going to make sure it's worthwhile, get a lot of information for you guys, and move forward on it. So first and foremost, I mentioned about a good partner and a good friend from TransCanada. Heather Holland is the Manager and Supplier Diversity of Local Content Project Development for Keystone Projects. That's a big title there. Big overview. So sounds like you don't sleep a lot. You're all over the place. Or maybe they cloned you already. But
in progress.
She is the manager, as a manager of supplier diversity for projects and developments, Keystone Projects. Heather Holland is responsible for leading, developing, and implementing a multi-year supplier diversity strategy for a portfolio capital project in excess of $5 billion. That's a little bit of change, isn't it? $5 billion, again, $5 billion. In this role, Ms. Holland functions as a liaison between the company and diverse supplier communities. So why don't we welcome Ms. Holland and give us a brief overview on some of the things that you'd like to present.
Well, thank you, Alan, and good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in the discussion and share a little bit more information about TransCanada. So before we get into the later discussion about opportunities, which is probably what you're most interested in, I think it'll be helpful to give you an overview of TransCanada, so if you understand the sort of energy infrastructure and footprint, you can better understand the opportunities and how to potentially access those opportunities. So a little bit more about TransCanada. TransCanada is headquartered in Calgary in Alberta, Canada, and sits primarily in three business segments: pipelines, natural gas and oil pipelines, and as Alan mentioned, you may or may not have heard of Keystone Pipeline. Keystone is one of the pipelines in TransCanada portfolio. The other two segments, power generation and natural gas storage. TransCanada is a reliable development, a responsible development and reliable operator of North American or energy infrastructure across North America, with over 42,000 miles of natural gas pipeline and a little bit over 2,600 miles of oil pipeline. And then the U.S. energy portfolio, primarily in the Northeast, is a combination of natural gas-fired combined and simple cycle power plants that generate enough capacity to power over 11 million homes. TransCanada has roughly 6,000 employees. About 4,000 of those employees are in Canada. About 1,900 in the U.S. in 35 states, which typically surprises a lot of people, and about 135 employees in Mexico in approximately 7 states. That gives you a brief overview of TransCanada, and then we'll be able to talk a little bit more about opportunities. And probably one last point in terms of natural gas storage. With all those assets in the storage, we're actually the third largest natural gas storage operator. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very much, Heather. Really appreciate that and look forward for, as you mentioned, additional information that we're going to be discussing. Next panelist is Sergio Rodriguez. Sergio is a Chief Strategy Officer at the Credit Junction, an online marketplace lending platform focused on providing working capital solutions to manufacturing, industrial, small, and medium-sized businesses. In this role, he focuses on agricultural sectors, business development initiatives across the aerospace and defense, oil and gas sectors. Most recently, he was a professional staff member with the Committee on Financial Services in the U.S. House of Representatives, where he worked on technology and trade issues, including cybersecurity, sanctions, and monetary policy. Sergio, welcome.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for being here and the live stream folks. Like Alan said, I came from Capitol Hill. Before that, I spent 3 years as an advisor to the Undersecretary at the Department of Treasury. Before that, I was a naval officer and still currently work as a naval reservist intelligence officer. I, unfortunately, am very well briefed and understand the regulations and red tape that a lot of small businesses encounter. My role on Capitol Hill was working with small businesses, working with banking institutions and trade associations that were focused on trying to promote small business and entrepreneurship. And the recurring theme that I came across since the financial crisis was a freeze in the credit markets and the inability for traditional financial institutions to really help local and small businesses. I think one of the phenomena that you've seen since the financial crisis is that 6 years 6 years since the financial crisis, actually maybe a little longer. But I know at the local level, many of you in this room and those listening understand how difficult it is to get a loan to grow your business. And one of the things that I did when I left the Hill, when I left Capitol Hill, was wanting to find a better way, trying to find a solution. I joined a startup immediately after leaving Capitol Hill, focused on technology, still serve as an advisor, but I met a great and very smart entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, who was putting together a team of banking and tech executives trying to come up with a solution to solve the problem of access to capital at the local and with small business. Michael Finkelstein, my CEO, launched the Credit Junction. I joined almost immediately because I knew that his model for trying to help small business, which was, like Michael said, or Alan said, we are a technology-enabled platform connecting small businesses with institutional capital. So we are there as a medium, a facilitator to really bridge the gap for many small businesses in the country. A scary data point, only one charter for a financial institution has been issued since 2009, since the financial crisis. Another scary data point, just a most recent one I read from Ernst & Young, nearly 1 in 5 companies has had to change their bank just in this past year. So clearly, small businesses across the country are feeling the crunch, are feeling the pinch. And so what the Credit Junction tries to do is as an asset-backed lender, come in and provide solutions to small businesses across the country. Specifically with, I know we're talking about a lot of sectors, energy, transportation, and aerospace. Our company services all those small businesses, suppliers that work those industries. Many of those small businesses in those industries they feel they've felt from big companies, large companies, they've been pushed out. Their supplier, the suppliers have pushed out payments, and so these unfortunately these businesses that are second and third tier suppliers have had an inability to access capital to grow, and we are there to provide a solution. A lot of interesting, exciting things going on around the world. Rising labor costs in Asia, the widening of the Panama Canal. Those big macro, events are actually creating opportunities for small businesses across the country. So you see in transportation and in aerospace some real exciting. This is a really exciting time. Although without an ability to access capital, many small businesses can't seize on that, and the credit junction tries to solve. It tries to be there as a solution.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sergio. Our next panelist is Mr. Fred Keaton. He's the owner and principal at Keaton Iconoclast Consulting, LLC. The firm offers expertise in executive leadership development, cognitive and economic inclusion, government and public affairs. Keaton has a highly successful 30-plus year career at Caesars Entertainment, the largest and most geographical dispersed casino, gaming, hospitality, and entertainment company. Welcome, Fred.
Thank you. I think one of the things that I wanted to do was to talk in terms of the past 30 years, and that past 30 years being in the gaming and hospitality business, but then also to talk relative to this next year and this transformation that I'm making from a senior executive in the largest casino, gaming, and entertainment company to an entrepreneur. And the fact that when I said that I wanted to make this sort of change in my life, they came along and said, well, why don't we be your first client if you're going to go? So that is that's very much a positive. But I wanted to talk about this issue of iconoclast. Iconoclast simply means to think differently. Iconoclast is a challenger or a destroyer of icons. I call it, being from Mississippi, creating the capacity to call the baby ugly, right? You create the baby, you nurture the baby, you do all these things for it, and after a while you lose the capacity to see where it could be better. And so very often as business owners, we have these babies that we've conceived of, and we've created them, we've nurtured them, we've structured them, we've set forth how they run, and then we start to miss opportunities because we're not seeing them as pristinely as we ought to see them. That's what this whole way of thinking is about. Now, as I step back and think about an entrepreneur, and the fact that over the past 30 years I've had opportunities not only to work with great entrepreneurs, small business owners, and mega business owners, as well as those organizations that support them. One of my key partners is sitting there, Otto Merida from the Las Vegas Latin Chamber, and we've worked together now for the past 10 years on a number of different opportunities. I say that to come back to say that this thing that I am doing now, a part of it is being here with you all to talk about the fact that we have a city under a roof. We have our own police force, we have food and beverage, we have entertainment, we have everything you can think of under a roof. And as we think about that, think about the opportunities that also attach to the fact that we're open 365 days per year, 24 hours per day, and we have huge volumes. We bought, I think it was 137,000 pounds of bacon 2 weekends ago at one of our properties for the weekend. So those are opportunities for small business owners to participate. You may not have the volume to do it all, but you can certainly participate. And so what I want to do here is just to make the fact that when you think about this business, the business of casino gaming and entertainment has really expanded over the past 25 years. When I started 30 years ago, literally, domestically, it was just in 2 states for the most part. Now it's beyond that and even includes Native American gaming and other opportunities. So I want to talk about those opportunities today. I want to give myself up for questions. I think it would be more value to you.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Welcome aboard. You know, I just, before we get into some of the questions, just had a quick, approximately around 1997, there was about 1.1 million Hispanic-owned businesses. What does people think approximately is right now? If you get the answer right, you'll get a prize later. Anybody want to take a stab? What do you think is right now approximately? Yes, sir. 4? Anybody else? 5? Well, approximately around 3.2 million and growing. But the indexing is showing that even though in these talked about in the earlier panels about some of the challenges and regulations and so forth, there's still that entrepreneur spirit and some different growth rates that we're looking at that that 3 point could be a little bit more. Could be closer to 4, so you might win the prize later. We'll see. We'll double check. So what I'd like to do, as we mentioned, we want to make this very interactive. I have one question for each of the panelists, and then we'll ask you, the attendees, what questions you have, and then we'll circle back with a couple other questions that I have for them. We have a good interactive. And why don't we start with Heather? Heather, you mentioned about TransCanada, and it's not just one particular project that you're doing. There's a lot of different projects. When you and I met in D.C. a couple months ago, I knew a little bit about it, but when you showed me the diagram and the scope of all the different works you're doing across the country, I was just blown away with it. So on that note, TransCanada is working on Keystone Pipeline that you mentioned. Can you explain what the purpose of that pipeline is and where the building will take place to give people a visual of it as well?
Sure. The Keystone Pipeline system is actually made up of a couple different segments or components. KXL, or Keystone XL, is what you hear about most frequently in the news, but the existing part of Keystone XL is a roughly 2,600-mile crude oil pipeline running from Canada in Hardisty down through Nebraska, South Dakota. Let me make sure I get the states correct and not straight up through North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, touches down through Illinois and Oklahoma. And that existing part of the Keystone system, part of that system has been operational since kind of 2 expansions, basically. One part operational since July of 2010, and the second part operational since February of 2020. So Keystone XL is actually an addition or expansion of the existing Keystone system that will also run from Hardisty as well, and then will connect down through Montana, South Dakota, and connect in at Nebraska. And the sort of significance of Keystone XL, besides the fact that it crosses the international border, is a critical piece of energy infrastructure that will allow Canadian and American producers access to the broader markets within the Midwest and the Gulf Coast. And that's kind of the overall significance of it. And generally speaking, in terms of the infrastructure or what's been put into it as of March 31st of this year, TransCanada has invested roughly $2.4 billion into that infrastructure already. So it also has a significant contribution to U.S. economy.
Great, perfect. And the thing too is it's not just the building out, is the ongoing process too, to think about what are the different areas as a small business owner that you can provide that would cater to the ongoing process for them, not only in that project but other projects. I'm going to jump ship from the Keystone area to gaming. I've had the opportunity, as Michael had mentioned, past at U.S. Hispanic and also working in a small business portfolio for many years, working with the different gaming industry and casinos in Las Vegas, and their extensive outreach in terms of it, working not only in the Hispanic community but all communities in terms of looking at opportunities of procurement, expanding on supplier diversity, and internally as well. So, Fred, from that perspective, we know that gaming is yes, gambling is part of it, but there's also the behind the scenes and the opportunities for small business that you wouldn't think about currently right now that you should think about in terms of on an ongoing basis, because it's not just two states. I live in Maryland, and that booming like crazy. I know there's some challenges in New Jersey, but other states, Connecticut, and so it's not just any more of a regional base. Like I mentioned earlier, we're looking at nationally. So, Fred, why don't you give us a perspective on that region?
When we think about the business nowadays, it is well beyond simply the issue of slots and tables as it was way back then. Now you're looking at mega facilities. Even the riverboat gaming operations are very, very well done facilities. You're thinking about food and beverage that attaches back to those facilities. You're thinking about entertainment that attaches to those facilities. You're thinking about professional services, all sorts of professional services, whether it's legal services, whether it's services that have to do with security-related issues, IT, technology, all those sorts of things, as well as some of just the very mundane necessities to run the business, like office supplies and everything. So as I think about this, it runs a gamut from strategic consulting that says, here's what you're going to do to run this business, here's how you need to think about where you want to be in the next 30 years, all the way down to what you need in order to make the office run for the next day. Those are huge opportunities, I think, for small businesses. What you have seen over the past 10 or 15 years especially has been that the major players in the casino gaming industry have all really formalized their approach to outreach to diverse businesses. Now, one of the things I think that's most important here is we tell folks, especially when we leave our markets, let's talk about three types of markets very quickly. There are resort markets, and those are markets like in Las Vegas and Atlantic City. There are hybrid markets. Those markets are markets such as the Chicagoland area, Cleveland, Baltimore, New Orleans. And then there are frequency markets. Those markets are markets such as Shreveport, Louisiana, the Mississippi Gulf Coast, etc. Frequency simply means that people may come 3 or 4 times a month. Hybrid means they may come 3 or 4 times a month, some of them, and others may come twice a year. And resort means more likely than not, they'll come once or twice a year and stay a number of days. In each one of those instances, as you might imagine, there are different levels of opportunity to do volume. Obviously, in the major resorts, you have huge levels of opportunity for volume. In hybrids, you have different levels, and in the frequency, especially for small businesses, and some of those are in not highly populated areas, it makes for a great economic development tool. So what we've heard over the past 30 years has been how well this works for economic development under the strict rules of gaming, which is, again, highly regulated, which requires licensing, which has a tremendous amount of volume, which is great business because of the volume, but is stressful business sometimes because of the expectation.
Great, thank you. Now, a lot of great opportunity in the gaming industry, and thank you for that input and that viewpoint. Now we're going to go to Sergio in terms of aerospace. It's a big, certainly, infrastructure, and especially across the country and so forth. And you mentioned about credit junction and the focus on providing that portal piece for small business to be able to have that opportunity. And how big is the aerospace field here, specifically in the Southwest area?
Well, when you look in the region, it's fairly large, because you know that we mentioned earlier, we were speaking about California and some of the businesses that are, there's an exodus, unfortunately, to places like Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and it's definitely affecting or it's hitting the aerospace sector. So one of the things that is there's an aging aircraft just lifespan. There is less capital for new equipment, new platforms that are coming out. So many small business and independent and business aircraft companies have had to extend out those platforms and those aircraft which gives a lot of opportunity for small businesses. From a chamber perspective, there's a lot of ways in which they can attract, in government, obviously you have government set aside. There are a host of ways to attract women-owned and minority-owned businesses to provide them, to award them contracts up and down at federal and state level. Well, this is also happening in the commercial sector. In the private sector, again, I had mentioned earlier, you're seeing this issue of rising costs in Asia, which is bringing supply chains and manufacturing back to the United States. Some of it is being put into Mexico. That is opening up a lot of opportunities to move those sort of manufacturing jobs in aerospace transportation back here to the Southwest. I think it's a huge opportunity. These multinational companies, whether it's Airbus or Boeing or Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, they not only is it a good thing from a corporate social responsibility perspective to have a diverse supply chain, it just makes more sense on to the company's bottom line. So many small businesses, minority-owned, women-owned, there are huge opportunities. Clearly, the Southwest, you have many small businesses that that fit that demographic. So there are huge opportunities from a capital perspective. We are there because we're a technology-enabled platform, so we are not a checklist-minded type of company. So we work with companies, small business and medium-sized businesses of all shapes and sizes. The technology for us makes the credit and the ability to help small businesses. There's an anonymity there because we're interested in the company, and we're interested in the data and is there a path to growth. I'm not concerned about what you look like. So cross supply chains, again, in aerospace, transportation, oil and gas, there's a lot of opportunity, and so again, it's an exciting time.
Great. Thank you. And before I take some questions, another thing to always look at is that no one company or one industry can always guarantee you a small business or an opportunity, but the thing is to be well prepared. Don't also forget about other agencies. Obviously, your leaders in the chambers of commerce that are here represented and the great work that they do from a grassroots level, but also the small business development centers, their outreach and how they can assist you and guide you. Or the SCORE. SCORE is a very across the country with retired executives and current now. Their demographics are changing too in terms of they're not all retired. They're mentors that are currently in the fields too working in the industry that you're in, and they can assist you and help you. So think about that as well. When you get ready to expand, when you're thinking of going into an industry that we're talking about right now in terms of opportunities and looking down in the horizon, using those distribution areas to also assist you. So why don't we open up for a couple questions, and then we'll get them back to a couple of other questions I have for the panelists as well. We have one. Let me see. Do you have racinos? Is that okay? This question's for Fred. Do you have any suggestions to racinos so they can be as competitive as possible?
Well, Caesars Entertainment.
And before you start, maybe explain what racinos mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Racinos are essentially slots at the racetracks, at horse tracks. And it's an interesting set of circumstances with racinos. We are operating, as it currently stands, 3 racinos in our portfolio. And within the construct of that, I think the way that you really make it work is that there's adequate support for the horsemen. Horses and the like are competitive, but as well that you're running a great operation from an entertainment perspective. So it's an interesting thing that horse racing is considered a traditional entertainment issue. You put a slot machine at the same facility, and it goes from traditional entertainment, gambling, and the unfortunate thing is very often some people have a distorted view of what that means, of whether or not there's actually going to be value that's brought from the connection of slots, tables, and horse racing. It can be done. I think we've done it very successfully in Iowa. I know that we've done it very successfully as well in Pennsylvania. And I know that as we continue to work on this, it's, again, a melding of all three of those. Here's what I would tell you very quickly. One of the things that you got to do is businesses evolve. It used to be that it was slots and tables and a restaurant or two, usually a buffet. Now you notice that you started to see hotels, and then you start, and I mean away from Atlantic City and Las Vegas, you started to see hotels, you started to see entertainment facilities, you started to see other things. The same thing happens with casino operations. You want to evolve them to the point that they become real entertainment centers wherever they are, and you can do that with the appropriate melding of gaming, entertainment, and horse racing.
Great, thank you. Yes.
I'm Vegas, trying to pitch our IT capability, and got a lot of encouragement, and so I was really looking forward to that. But then after about a year or so, I finally got told that they were going to favor local IT companies, and so I shouldn't bother. And then, so I'm based here in New Mexico, so then I started talking to some of the Indian gaming, and we really made a big impression with a lot of the technical folks, especially with our Oracle background, things like that. But then when it came time to actual procurement, I pretty much got told the same thing, that they were going to go with Indian-owned IT companies. So do you have any suggestions on how to battle that kind of?
Well, let's so for the audience, it's streaming too, so they can hear the question. The question was that specifically in Vegas, where the city center was being built and so forth, there was an opportunity in the IT, started in engaging in it, but was given the response of that looking at more from a local region there in Vegas as opposed to a regional perspective. Then into the Indian gaming industry, and it happened again as well in terms of it being more of not regional, but more in the specific area. So the question is, what advice would you give in terms of maybe some things to think outside the box that would help penetrate or give an opportunity to be, not a guarantee, but a seat at the table?
First thing I would do is I have to tell you, I have no affiliation with MGM or with C-Center or anything like that. So I can't speak for that specifically. What I would tell you is that you've got to be tenacious. And one of the points I have up here, and as you might imagine, in a well-managed panel, you may know a couple of the questions you're probably going to get. And one of the things that I've said, whether it is in new jurisdictions or in existing jurisdictions, is you've got to be tenacious, which means you don't stop coming back. You come back over and over and over again if you've got something that you really want to sell. Now, I will tell you that when you're talking Native American gaming, gaming on Indian lands, there's a different set of circumstances that attaches to that in some ways. In some ways, it's exactly the same. When you have Native American gaming on Native American lands for a particular tribe, that tribe is open and doing business for the benefit of the tribe, for the benefit of the registered members, as well as for community benefit. So you'll have some of that that you have to manage any time that you're dealing with the Native American tribe. But again, I would tell you to just be tenacious, keep coming back, find out what the brand differentiator is for them. What is it that they're looking for, and how might you engage to really drive that particular outcome? Sometimes if you don't have that tough conversation, then you're not in a position to show what you can do, what your unique value proposition is for the organization.
Great. I'm going to appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to shift a little bit to Heather. We talked about you talked about the different projects nationwide and already the spent on 2.4 billion. But what are the other? Can you describe what other services TransCanada, what you're looking for that might be of interest, especially the teams here at the summit or in the Southwest area?
Sure. And actually throughout the day, and Fred kind of made a related point, but throughout the day we talked about local, and then Alan, you touched a point on national. So you have to, I think you think local, regional, and national. Where are those opportunities and where do you fit in? And sometimes it does mean asking those tough questions. So for example, if TransCanada does not have a project in New Mexico, and if we're looking for, if we're in pre-construction and we're looking for land services or right-of-way clearing or title information, perhaps you can't do that locally, but perhaps you could do that regionally. Are you also licensed in another state to perform those type of services? So in terms of specific services, they vary. It also depends on the phase of pipeline where we're in. So if you think pre-construction, construction itself, post-construction, and operations. So before you sort of break ground, you have to do some things to clear the ground. And those were some examples that I talked about, some of the land or right-of-way services. And then when you get into construction, digging ditches, welders, operators, truck drivers, and that may be where there's more local opportunity where the actual project exists. But sometimes, depending on the size of the project, there may not be enough local resources, so that's where the regional opportunity comes in. Are you willing and able to travel to the next state, a couple states over, and spend a significant amount of time there, because you can't build a pipeline overnight. And that could be maybe 6 months at a time. And then that transfers into sort of regional opportunities during construction, and then post-construction, some of those may be, and throughout construction, I'll go back to, that is a significant part where you're not just looking for those type of services that require that may be sort of more labor intensive. You're also looking for foremen, project managers, some of those professional services to manage the actual construction project itself.
Great. And not to put you on the spot, Heather, but you mentioned those different areas. Would you say out of, again, no guarantees, but what would you say the top two things, areas, or that you're looking at it from a standpoint of TransCanada, say, look, we want to diversify, we want to look at expanding this to other communities or opportunities of companies that are ready for that. Or for those of you that are here in the audience, your business might not be producing that, or you're thinking of in that industry, but what are the things that you might think that you see in the near future that could be of high demand?
I'd say probably of high demand, when you talk about construction, there are some sort of repeatable services that occur over and over, probably engineering. And so your willingness and openness to either partner, if you're a small business, because as a large company, we also are looking for cost containment and efficiency. So we may go with a large contractor who will turn around and further employ. That's the kind of tier 2, tier 3 opportunities. So are you willing to really sort of subcontract, or do you look for potential other opportunities to partner or go into a joint venture to sort of expand your services where there's kind of symmetry there? So what may be sort of common and frequent opportunities that I could sort of guess, again, no guarantee. The engineering, construction, and procurement, that's what you do in the pipeline construction. Land services, environmental services, some of the in terms of kind of more specialized, when we get into the workforce, even welders, project managers. And we work with our sort of union partners. We hire for a pipeline construction project. So in terms of just to summarize services, I say engineering, anything related to sort of pipeline welding, non-destructive testing, the integrity of the pipe, corrosion, and then in terms of potential employment, welders, laborers, truck drivers, all different types of truck drivers, driving the pipes, semi-tractor trailers, and typically your truck drivers go through the Teamsters Hall.
Great, thank you. Sergio, on that note, many times, we're familiar with certain organizations or certain outreach or summits and so forth that we gravitate to, but in the aerospace industry, what would you say, what would you navigate in terms of recommendations for aerospace opportunities?
Well, I want to follow up on something that Heather mentioned. There are a lot of opportunities across, especially across pipeline, oil and gas. She had mentioned truck drivers and at the local level, tons of opportunities. And one of the things that, because I think aerospace and transportation, obviously, I think they mirror each other. There's ways in which workforce development is huge, especially folks in this room across the Southwest. There's if you read, unfortunately I have to read a lot of trade journals, and I follow transportation, aerospace, oil and gas industry a lot. There is a shortage of truck drivers. There's a shortage of trucks. When you look at aerospace, there's an interesting evolution in what's going on. Drones are becoming much more prevalent. You see it in its commercial use. You see it, obviously, Department of Defense is using it. We're flying them overseas 24/7 all the time. But you look at what's happening with Amazon, and pretty soon you're going to be having delivery products being delivered to your house. E-commerce companies are looking at that. When it comes to oil and gas, drones are going to be inspecting the pipeline. When you look at agriculture, drones could survey the land, survey crops, product, all sorts of things. So that's an interesting, again, evolution in what's going on across oil and gas, and it's all tied into one, but all across aerospace, transportation, and oil and gas.
Back to the audience. Any questions? Yes, Bill.
Heather, do you ever contract out protective services such as guards and professionals?
Question was opportunities on protective services and guards or firefighters in the industry or through TransCanada.
A little bit of yes and no. So one thing we may contract out, depending on the location of the project, is security services to secure the project itself. And then you have emergency response team, and that emergency response team could be a combination of in-house and or contracted out.
Yes, sir.
Earlier, do you have a certain percentage of small business entities that you will TransCanada will require on certain projects or partnerships?
Question was, is there any public information as it relates to some of the goals that relate to procurement in the different minority sectors?
Right now, TransCanada does not have a specific target. We're really focusing on just growing our supply base, in particular our diverse supply base. In the U.S., our supplier diversity program is still relatively young as of November 2013. So we're really focused on growth and matching up growth with the core services or in our core business of building and constructing pipelines. So didn't want to really put a lot of restrictions on that at the moment. But that also aligns with when we go out, if you have a large contractor and that's the sort of strategy you use, then you have to look at where are the opportunities. Is it tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3? And it varies based on the type of service.
Yes, sir.
I admire that you are so well versed in your fields and the opportunities that your fields have to offer to everyone. But what really concerns me is I'm retired from education first, is that we are not doing enough to bring Hispanics and other people to a point where they understand that there are opportunities out there for entrepreneurial involvement. We are more concerned in the public schools in teaching and integrating into the people the entitlement that is expected when you graduate out of school. And so, one of the things that I would lay out as a challenge is how can your organizations work with the public in general to try to develop this awareness that entrepreneurship is a valid pathway to earning good living, developing a business, and to make awareness that there are opportunities in your specific areas. Because you know what? I'm knowledgeable, but I had no idea that it existed. I had no idea that there are opportunities in your areas of expertise. So how do we get that out to the public? Or is that even something you want to consider being involved in? Because I can tell you something. Having been in the public education system, great job of indoctrinating the entitlements. Did a great job of doing it. And I was one of the rebels who tried to do the other. And that was a rough go because American businesses do not spend a lot of time letting us know in the public that they're looking for us, that they want us to be partners with them, and to create businesses that will provide opportunities for those who are willing to take that step of entrepreneurship. So that is what I'm concerned about. So what is your business doing to try to develop that type of outreach? Because you can influence American education. That's not happening. Because I know it doesn't provide a profit for the businesses. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Very good point. And certainly I'll let who wants to raise their hand first.
So a couple of things. One, we being Caesars Entertainment, and I'm representing Caesars and representing the formality of what we do as an organization. We have a formal mentor-protege program that's a part of our supplier diversity efforts. It's a part of our sourcing efforts overall. And the mentor-protege approach really does take brand new businesses, startup businesses, or other businesses that show promise, where the entrepreneur shows promise, and we spend the time to engage that entrepreneur and to help that entrepreneur to grow if, again, he or she shows promise relative to any particular sector of our spend. So that's one thing. I think the other thing that we all have to be aware of, especially when we're talking about how we run our businesses, as a matter of course, where we operate, we make it known that we view ourselves as an economic development driver. We make it known that if you bring quality, service, and price, not only will we do business with you, but we will also help you to grow your business. Those two things are key. There are other things I think sometimes that we don't think about that are also important. We are a casino gaming concern, which means that you engage in casino gaming when you come to one of our properties. There's this thing called responsible gaming. One of the things that we don't do is we don't engage kids directly at all, and we don't engage organizations that engage kids directly. And there's a reason for that. And I think you would all agree with the reason for it, wouldn't you? And so as we make these opportunities known, these opportunities are being made known to the chambers of commerce, to others, and quite frankly to the general public as well, but understanding that there are certain rules that we live by because we are extremely regulated as a business. And so sometimes you may not hear X, Y, and Z, you may not see us in schools or anything else, but there's a reason for that. But there are other avenues for people to understand that when they are of age, that they can do business with us. That's a huge point for business.
Thank you. Sergio?
So I spend a lot of time traveling the country, talking to chambers of commerce. The two things that I get questioned always on when it comes to small business is access to capital and workforce development. access to capital is easy, right? Not just us, but there's plenty of opportunities that we can, work with you on and work with chambers of commerce and work with small businesses on. That's what I do every day. Workforce development, you hit on an issue it's a national problem, right? We're graduating students who don't have, in all sorts of industries. Heather mentioned needing welders and needing these skilled labor truck drivers. Whatever it is, you can earn a great living doing these things, but yet we're graduating students not just from high school, but from college who can't do a percentage calculation in their head. You go to McDonald's, you go to a retailer, and they need a picture of the transaction to do it. They can't do it in their head. So clearly this is something that it's a huge problem on the education. It's a huge problem across the country. We're actually teaming with, I'll give you an example of something we're trying to do. We're a technology company. We hire folks who have programming skills, but can also, we have a credit team, so we have folks with banking experience. So we're looking for opportunities to partner to help solve that workforce development issue. We are in the beginning stages of a pilot program in the state of North Carolina. I don't want to get too much away, but we're working with them to address, working with the state and the Department of Transportation on construction projects. A lot of these contracts go to minority-owned and women-owned businesses. Well, a lot of them need guidance, need some help, not hand-holding, but just some added. I mean, people, everyone in this room knows what it takes to run a small business. It is incredibly time-consuming. Oftentimes, we deal with business owners that give us their financials in a shoebox because it's not because it's a bad business. They just don't have the time. All of a sudden, they're just servicing clients and they're pushing out products, and the last thing they need or do is go get QuickBooks or get an account. But the state is looking to partner with universities, working with, you could get, I'll use them as an example, you could get local college students who are graduates or in their law school programs or their business school programs, and you do this anywhere, partnering with chambers of commerce, working with local businesses, but getting the students who oftentimes are a little older, have some business experience, do pro bono work to come in, again, helping with contracts, helping with accounting, getting these partnerships going at a local level to solve some of these issues, again, that small business owners have. Going to local high schools, there's a program, we spent a lot of time in South Carolina. There are apprenticeship programs there where BMW, Siemens, some of these other companies cannot, again, address, there's a huge problem with workforce development. So in order to try to train students, they're going into schools and saying, here's an opportunity, there's a great career, great job in skilled labor. It's one of the things that, not everybody's going to go to college. Not everyone's going to be a lawyer. We need these people. And the videos and the discussions that we had at lunch about farmers and agriculture, that's how we eat. That's how we, all of those things are valuable, but we don't talk about that. We don't honor the teachers that, in your career field that are training next evolution of leaders. And so again, it's something that it's struck a nerve because it's something that we hear a lot, and obviously we love a national debate and this to programs across the country, pilot programs everywhere where not just banks but manufacturing companies, agricultural companies, it doesn't matter. Everyone's teaming up because again, it's a scary it's a technology-driven world. And that advanced manufacturing, we are just not hiring or not producing the skilled labor that we need.
Thank you, Sergio. We're going to wrap up here. Good questions and good dialogue. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask each of the panelists in 1 minute, what advice would you give the audience in terms of what they should take with them to think about?
I'll go first. I guess a couple things, a couple pieces of advice, and it'll be a touch on your last question as well. takeaways. So how do you get word out, whether it's for yourself as a small business owner or within the community? So becoming knowledgeable about opportunities. For example, TransCanada has participated and partner with different organizations such as the Libre Institute, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, or Hispanics in Energy, in an effort to increase awareness about the available opportunities. As a small business owner, I'd say know your business, know your strength, and know what you have to offer and focus in on that, so that when you come to me or some other corporation, you can briefly tell me what it is you have to offer, but you come knowing information about whether it's TransCanada or some other company. So do that research. Don't try to go after every piece of business. You really can't. If you focus in on what your strength is and where the best fit is, and then work that. It takes a long time in transportation and energy infrastructure. It could be 2 years before you even potentially get access to someone, begin even just the qualification process. And when you get to that point, for example, some of our requirements, we may want to know, what are your financials? So are your financials in order? Can you produce that? What is your pipeline industry or pipeline construction experience? What project have you worked on? So be able to have that and to sort of and share what your capabilities are.
Sir?
Yeah, I think from a Chamber of Commerce, but I feel like I spoke too much, so I'm just going to keep this short.
You did, but we won't say anything.
From a Chamber of Commerce perspective, trying to recruit businesses, again, there are ways in which you can partner across state, local, to promote, market, bring companies to your region that, it's not just focused on manufacturing and aerospace. There are a whole host of sectors, healthcare, e-commerce, that, again, it's an exciting time for businesses. And the workforce development piece, like I said, it sort of struck a nerve because this is something that I hear everywhere. And, I really wish that we could, some of these partnerships that we're doing with chambers of commerce or state and local organizations to promote small business and entrepreneurship, ways to do that across the country. So, I'm always available, but love to follow up with you. So.
And Alan, I can just jump in real quick. I do have one other piece of
Sorry,
advice.
Heather, you're 1 minute up. No.
Use your resources to help you, to sort of realistically help you assess your business and the potential for growth, like the Small Business Administration, the Minority Business Development Centers, the National Minority Supplier Development Councils, WeBank, or Women's Business Enterprise Councils. Use those resources, and a lot of them also offer certification and will kind of give you a realistic assessment of your company's ability, looking at those technical financial aspects, for example, and give you a realistic evaluation on what it takes to do business with a large corporation or how you could get there.
The first thing I would say is to understand your target client. If you take the gaming the gaming industry, for example, the American Gaming Association is a great source for information about the industry, all sorts of information, including what we buy. So you can find that. So understand your client, not just in broad brush, but also at the local or regional level. If you're engaging them, understand how much business they do, understand what their challenges are. I said be tenacious, and I mean that. If you believe that your goods or services fit for what they're trying to drive, the outcome that they're trying to drive, and that you can bring value, be tenacious in continuing to engage them so that you get the opportunity over time to do that. Bring quality, service, and price. It's not always totally about price. If you can put your quality and service, compelling value propositions out there, you can get beyond price. And I would say this, and this is much more in keeping with, I guess, the last panel, and I think it's important for all of us to begin to think about this. I did a lot of work in the state of New York the last couple of years, because we were one of the companies in competition for a gaming license there. And they have this thing where they say, come to New York, we'll give you 10-year moratorium on taxes, et cetera, et cetera. You may have seen the commercial on TV. The thing that's important about that is that they have formalized an approach to driving business. It is time certain. It gives you time to make money. It's commitment certain. You're contractually obligated. There are a number of things that they have done in order to formalize the opportunity. So often we talk about going from one industry to the other, and we don't formalize the opportunity in some way that there's a win-win for the industries and for us with the geographic boundaries and the other things that have to do with wherever we are when we put the deal together. Let's start thinking in a more universal way about how we create economic development that you all can take advantage of so that there's a huge win-win with a time certain and you are there and you're engaged. That's a smart way of thinking about this.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We hope that this panel has given you some insights. Talked about, I think, get out of your comfort zone. Too many people only go to our own industries or our own organizations, but think about all the other opportunities in other communities and in general mainstream. Be prepared, do your research, persistency. Be persistent and be focused on the areas that you see that have opportunity and growth. So, again, a round of applause for our panelists here. I'm sure they'll be available afterwards. Thank you very much for your attention. And I'd like to take this opportunity to bring up to the stage a good friend, a good leader, not only everywhere, right? From Alaska to New York to you name it, right? I'm excited. Yvette Fernandez now leading the foundation, and she has a little bit of a closing remarks for you guys.
Thank you again, panelists, for fabulous remarks. And now everyone's going to be approaching you for business cards for business opportunities. Well, thank you again. I know it's been a long day, and we're going to go, and it's a beautiful day outside, and we're going to go outside, enjoy the sunshine, and have some beverages and some heavy hors d'oeuvres. But before I do so, I wanted to, again, thank you so much for attending this Southwest Business Summit. I want to thank our partners, especially the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. And I also want to thank the Libra staff. If you could please stand up. I know some people are outside and wanted to, again, give a round of applause. We've worked very, very hard on this for several months. And again, this is a team effort, and we couldn't do it without your help. We hope you enjoyed the summit panels, discussions, information that focus on highlighting business strategies leading to economic prosperity, as well as free market and government relations. The Libra Institute recognizes that the weak economy creates real challenges for small businesses, in particular for Hispanic entrepreneurs. We hope that entrepreneurs in the Southwest region can take advantage of these sessions to develop strategies for succeeding, and in the process for creating economic opportunities for the broader community. More than most Americans, polls show that Hispanics continue to believe that the American dream is in reach, that through hard work and discipline, they can succeed and build a better future. The Libra Institute hopes to be a resource to make that happen. I also want to mention again the Libra Institute's release of the scholarly paper, La Oportunidad, Growing Importance of Hispanic Entrepreneurs and How States Can Benefit. The research will help provide a better understanding of how the Hispanic community is faring the impact of government relations with these entrepreneurs. A summary actually in each of your packets. I feel tremendously blessed to be leading the Libra Institute and to be a part of this amazing organization that educates the U.S. Hispanic community in economic freedom, because we believe freedom drives progress. Economic freedom focuses on limiting government restrictions and expanding opportunities for jobs, entrepreneurship, volunteerism, and educational attainment, things that are fundamental to achieving the American dream. It gives individuals equal economic opportunity, full control and responsibility of their property, skills, and ideas. It reduces poverty, improves well-being, and increases the potential of a brighter future for all of our families. Our goal is for all U.S. Hispanic communities to be self-reliant and reach his or her full potential through hard work and merit. However, in order to achieve this goal, we need to have a good job, But to have a good job, we need to have an education as well as an understanding of principles and values of economic. The Libra Institute is focusing on 4 pillars: economic prosperity, education, faith and community, and family. We believe these 4 pillars will help elevate the overall well-being of U.S. Hispanics. The Southwest Business Summit falls under our economic prosperity pillar. In addition to the Southwest Business Summit and entrepreneurship, we are focused on financial literacy, a high school diploma initiative for people that do not have a high school credential, prayer breakfast, and women's initiatives. I am the child of Mexican immigrants who came to this country to achieve the American dream. I was born and raised in the great state of Alaska. My father had a 2nd-grade education and worked as a laborer for a subcontractor or an oil company. My mother learned how to speak English by studying for her beautician's license, and she had the courage to open up her own small business, a beauty salon. My parents achieved success in the American dream through family, hard work, and perseverance. We all have similar stories which has made the U.S. great and the best country to live in. But this can only continue by sharing the values and principles of economic freedom, because we know freedom drives progress. I invite you to keep in touch with us, our news, and our programs. We have exciting things to come for you, coming to you this year, as well as for your community. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter under the Libra Institute, and you can also add your email to our mailing list at librainstitute.org. Thank you again for joining us today. Please complete your survey. Again, all your surveys, there's a fishbowl in the back. We're going to, by giving us your survey, you'll be entered into a raffle at the networking reception. We're going to be raffling off 1 Southwest airline ticket, which you don't, which you have to, or 2 Southwest airline tickets, which you have to be present to win. And we're also going to be raffling off a tablet, which you do not have to be present to win, and we can mail it to you if you're not here. Please join us at the networking reception over here in the courtyard. We have drinks and heavy hors d'oeuvres. Thank you again, and God bless you.